This is Focus with Jack Caudill.
Good evening, I'm Jack Caudill and welcome to this month's edition of Focus. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. We're going to talk about that. Three experts with us to talk about that. Amber Roduner, she is the Assistant Program Director of Family Pathways at West River Mental Health here in Rapid City. Martina Martinez is the 988 Program Manager for the Great Plains Tribal Health. And Si Issler is the Nursing Coordinator for Wellfully here in Rapid City. A little background before we get going. The South Dakota Department of Health 2024 Suicide Surveillance Report says there were 49,476 deaths in the U.S. in 2022 that were classified as suicide. The figures from that year show that South Dakota had the 12th highest crude suicide rate in the country, the 8th highest age-adjusted suicide rate in the nation for that period. And from 2018 to 2022, 79% of the suicides in the United States were among men. Amber, we're going to start with you. What are the trends you are seeing in this area when it comes to suicide?
I mean, I think that it's widespread. It's all ages. There's no ages that I feel like are immune to this. Unfortunately, we see kids as young as 6, 7 that sometimes they don't really know what it means until they're making those statements. And sometimes they really do, unfortunately, know what it means to maybe not want to live anymore. And so what I feel like I can say the best is that it's widespread. There is really no one specific age group or trend that we're necessarily seeing.
And Martina Martinez, you're dealing with this on a tribal level. What are the trends that you're seeing?
It's pretty widespread as well. We do have kids as young as 6 years old committing suicide in the reservations. We have, up here in Rapid City, the numbers are the same. I've lost a lot of family and friends to suicide. So I think I agree with her, it's very widespread and yeah, it's pretty widespread, yeah.
Now, Si Issler, you're with Wellfully. People not familiar with Wellfully, that is for young people. What are you seeing in Wellfully when it comes to suicide?
So we have adolescents aged anywhere between 13 and 18 in our facility. A lot of them are there for substance abuse and recovery, and a lot of depression and suicidal thoughts and actions, suicidal ideation and attempts come along with substance abuse or just psychiatric issues in general, hopelessness, feeling lost and depressed or beyond those. So it's very common to see in our facility when they first come in.
Now, Martina, the suicide rate among Native Americans in South Dakota, 2.9 times higher than the rate among whites. Oglala Lakota County has the 3rd highest suicide rate in the state, behind Buffalo County and Todd County. What leads to those trends as you see it in Indian country?
Well, I think there is a lack of employment in those areas. I think there's some mental health stigma out there about taking care of your mental health and talking to others about what's going on. Almost don't talk to others, don't let anybody know what's really going on. Going back to the boarding school days, they were taking from their families, and so a lot of times people don't trust talking to others about what's really going on inside, so a lack of trust. And then also there's not a lot of transportation or resources in the rural communities, so it makes it really hard even if you want to get some counseling. There's not a lot of resources down there on the reservation, and then like I said, the transportation is an issue because a lot of times people have to come up to Rapid City to get the counseling help that they need, and so it's a combination of the employment rates, the unemployment rates, and also addictions. I think a lot of times people don't treat their mental health issues, and so they treat it with alcohol and drugs, and then it just becomes a cycle, goes around and round, and so and then that creates the coming down and then wanting to have the suicidal ideations and whatnot. So, but there's culture, and if people are drawn to the culture, I think that could be healing for them as well. Yeah.
Now, you talk about the stigma and not wanting to come forward to talk to people about it, and that's across all races, but is that even more pronounced in Native communities, do you think?
You know, when we do our outreach, we hear a lot of people, because they're small communities and somebody's auntie works at the mental health, and they don't want their parents to know that they're seeking out treatment or, you know, a therapist. And so sometimes having that number to call so that nobody knows that they're making the call, that really helps. Just not wanting others to know their business, you know, walking into the counseling services and whatnot. So, yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing there. That's what we hear at the when we're doing our outreaches. They don't want others to know what's going on.
How bad is the problem with suicide among young people on the reservation?
Oh, it is. It's an epidemic. It really is. We've had many cases that we've heard about throughout my grant, and it's a lot of youth, and it's just never ending. Honestly, it's an epidemic. Yeah.
Now, in South Dakota, the figures from the state show that suicide is the second leading cause of death in kids aged 10 to 14, also in that 25 to 34 age group. Si, you deal specifically with younger people. What is leading to that, do you think?
I think that some of what Martina talked about is part of it, that people don't talk about those issues, so therefore the kids don't know how to talk about those issues either. They don't have words to put to their feelings. A lot of times when we see our adolescents and our clients, they come in with very few words for a vast amount of emotions. They come in with angry and sad, and then they're confused as to why angry and sad feel so many different ways because they don't know these other words to put to those, because it hasn't been a discussion in their circle. And then their circle is also dealing with other traumas. We're going back historical traumas and then current traumas in their lives that are being felt by those kids, and that can be, anywhere abuse, neglect, substance abuse, beyond that, then the kids don't have any resources or someone trusted to talk to. For that, and then also they're around it. It is like you said, it's an epidemic, and so they're seeing this and they see it as a way out, and they don't know other routes that they could be taking.
What is the challenge of getting kids help before it reaches to the point where they act on it? How difficult is that to do?
It's really hard. It's hard to get the resources in the right hands. It's hard for also people to understand where they're at mentally, to understand that this is a problem, that this isn't normal. It's not normal to think, well, if I was just dead, this wouldn't be a problem. There are other avenues of thought, but until you start giving them a safe space and understanding and a voice, and again, words, dialogue, they may not know that these are options. And again, with stigma being an issue, we don't talk about mental health, or we don't talk about our feelings. It comes up a lot in their circles, so then they just have to take this on themselves until they start acting on it, whether it's self-harm or worse.
Amber, what's the difference between trying to deal with these suicidal thoughts in kids and young people with adults and older people?
I don't think that there is much difference, to be honest. I think it's something that unfortunately is learned. The same thing with adults, of we don't talk about our feelings, we don't deal with this. And thankfully, I think as a community, as society, we're starting to kind of move towards, let's talk about these things and have conversations. But these kids are growing up in homes where adults, don't already know how to do that. And so it's the same thing for adults. They don't know how to reach out and ask for help, or they feel like a burden in asking for help. And so I think it's a lot of the same across the board again, and that's why we're seeing it across the board, and it's not just in one specific age group or area, is because it's everyone. We don't know how to have these conversations or to tell people this is how I'm feeling outside of angry, mad, sad, those kinds of things. We don't talk about it.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll continue our look at suicide prevention when we continue with this month's edition of Focus. I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. That is our topic for the day. Martina Martinez is the 988 Program Manager for Great Plains Tribal Health. What are the warning signs? What do you look for in somebody that to indicate that they might be at risk?
Lack of interest, sleeping a lot, maybe sometimes getting rid of their things. Just not the desire to just isolate. People isolate a lot when they're having suicidal ideations. Just mood changes.
Si Issler is the nursing coordinator at Wellfully. Are those warning signs any different with younger people, with kids? What do you look for in kids?
A lot of the same things, really. Isolation, shutting down, withdrawing from groups. Self-harm is actually something that we look for a lot. Cutting, scratching, things like that. Again, we're always listening for, possible words of despair, of despondence, of hopelessness. But there is an affect that changes when they're really bad, then we just try to engage and try to give them a voice and let them verbalize what's going on, because that's first. One of our first steps is just they're identifying that they have these feelings.
Amber Roduner is the Assistant Program Director for Family Pathways at West River Mental Health. What do you see? What do people look for?
There's actually some competing schools of thoughts. Everything that they've said is absolutely accurate, but there's also some ideas out there that we don't always have warning signs also. And so the thing that I think about with that is that if we notice that somebody is struggling or is going through something hard, just ask, how are you doing? What's going on for you? Connect with them. Make them feel like they're important, because yes, there's these warning signs that both of these ladies have talked about. There's also not always a warning sign. And so it's important for us to also pay attention to that.
So if you see signs and you think that there might be an issue, what do you do? What resources are out there? How do you handle that?
I mean, as just a layperson in the community, right, you can connect with them, tell them that they're important. A lot of the people who have suicide survivor stories will say it just took that one person to ask, even though it was a stranger, are you okay? How are you feeling? So that's one of the things that you as a person in the community can easily do. The other things are obviously the 988, right, that she's got on her shirt and that we're talking about here. As another resource, Wellfully, they have an adolescent crisis center that we often refer people over to. They can come to West River Mental Health and do a walk-in emergency if they have concerns about any of their safety or things like that, and we can decide, do they need to go on to Wellfully? Do they need to go to a higher level of care? Because our biggest thing is to make sure that these people stay alive so that we can work on whatever it is that's making them so desperate for this way out.
Can I add one little thing
Absolutely.
there too? We're taught in my field, and I know in your field too, just to flat out ask,
Yes,
are you thinking
absolutely.
of killing yourself? Are you thinking of killing yourself or somebody else?
Yes.
And it's not going to drive somebody to do something that they wouldn't otherwise do. And there is a very scary, oh my God, what if I ask?
Yes.
But somebody that is in suicidal ideation will commonly say, yes, I am. And then that gives them that avenue to say something. So even if they're not showing those signs, but there is some reason to ask, it's okay to ask.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to add to that too is if you ask and they say yes, that does not mean to panic either, right? Because if you as a person start to panic and freak out about that, they're going to be less likely to be honest about that with someone else in the future also. So it's just responding and being able to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that you're going through that. Can we connect you with someone who's able to help, and those kinds of things.
And also, if you do not know the right thing to say, you can just call 988. You can call 988 yourself. If you have a loved one that's struggling and you don't know how to help them, you can actually call 988, call, text, or chat 24 hours a day, and you can get resources as well. Everybody thinks that it's just for suicide, but actually 988 is for suicide. Anybody in suicidal or in crisis mode. And a crisis could be one thing to one person and something else to another. So I urge, if you're struggling, if your family members are struggling, reach out to 988, and they'll get you some resources, and they'll do a follow-up call too as well.
Now, the 988 is a relatively new resource when it comes to suicide prevention. How has that worked out, and how is that working out?
I think it's a wonderful resource. So we have a SAMHSA grant, and we work with the 9 tribes in South Dakota and the Rapid City area. And so, like I said earlier, there's a lack of resources. What I hear when we are doing outreach is that some of the places have open positions for counselors. And so there's one of them serving a whole community. So it's really good just to be able to pick up the phone or even text. Younger people love to text. You can just text somebody any time of the day and get help with whatever you need at that time. So I think it's a wonderful resource. I'm very thankful we have it.
What other resources are there tribally for people on the reservation if they are or have a relative or friend or somebody they know that they think is in crisis?
So a lot of the organizations that we deal with have a behavioral health department through the hospitals, so they can seek the behavioral health department to get into counseling and whatnot. That would be the first step. If you're needing some assistance, you could reach out to your local hospital and get in touch with behavioral health.
All right. As far as young people go, Si, what do you get many young people reaching out on their own that say, look, I need help. I need help now.
Yeah, so we do. Since we have a 24-hour crisis care center, we do every once in a while have somebody that will just make it down on their own. If they want to stay overnight, then there is some parental permission, but we will take anybody in and listen when they need to talk and when they need help. So yes, they have walked in themselves and been brave and stood on their own.
What can you do for young people from there?
We offer a safe place for them to de-escalate, for them to take a step away from the stressors that they're facing for whatever reason is putting them into crisis mode. And then they are set up with a bed and food and intake activities and whatnot, and then they are set up with a counselor. So then the counselor comes in and assesses where they're at and helps them, talks with their family. They can stay up to 5 days if needed. And then the plan is always hopefully to send them back home with a de-escalation and a safety plan so that they can either come back if they need it or, use other coping skills as possible. And then if we can't do what is needed to be done in 5 days, then we start to look at higher level resources. But we works very, very hard to try to help.
All right, we got to take another break. We'll continue our look at suicide prevention when we continue with this month's edition of Focus. I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus. September being Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. That is our topic for the month. Si Issler is the nursing coordinator at Wellfully here in Rapid City. Si, is there anything that people don't understand about suicide or don't know about suicide prevention that they should know?
That anybody can feel this way. Anybody can have these thoughts, and I hate to use the word normal, but there are other ways to feel that can be better, that people can help with, but it is something that is able to be helped, and that people are worthy of somebody to listen to, and every person is worth something on this planet, and they have something to bring to this world, and they're important, and they can reach out.
Amber Roduner is the Assistant Program Director for Family Pathways at West River Mental Health. As you look at it, what do you think people should know about suicide and suicide prevention that they don't, or that maybe that they don't understand fully?
Yeah, I mean, everything that Si just said is absolutely accurate. One of my biggest pulls with it, pushes, I guess, is connection. Connection can make all the difference for somebody who's experiencing this. I think the other thing, though, and I always make sure that people in my office understand this, is that suicide and self-harm typically happens on impulse. And why that's so important is because then we can have a plan in place. If we've ever had a thought of harming ourselves or taking our lives, it's important to have some type of a plan. We call it a crisis response plan for our office, but it's really this idea of what can I do if I feel this way? Because again, we know too, when we're in this place, we're maybe not able to think logically and to think about all the things that we can do and the reasons for living. And so it gives us something to be able to just look at really quickly and say, oh, these are the things I can do, or the people that I can reach out to. And so having that as kind of a pre-plan is really important.
Martina Martinez is the 988 Program Manager for Great Plains Tribal Health. Anything you think people should know about suicide that they don't grasp?
Well, you know, I'll just go back to what I said earlier. I just think that we need to break the stigma of mental health and let people understand that it's okay to feel that way and get help. And it's normal. We all go through it. I know, you know, I've been through similar things in my life, and it's something that you can get through. You're worthy and you're loved, and that is my biggest thing. It's okay to have those thoughts in your head, and it's okay to ask for help. Mm-hmm. And you can get through it. So that's kind of what I would have to say. Yeah.
Now, you have a 988 event coming up that you wanted to talk about. What is that, and when is that, and what's happening with it?
Yes, September 8th is actually 988 Day. It's a day to spread awareness about 988, and so we will be having an event at Main Street Square from 5:30 to 7:30. We will be giving out these lovely shirts, so bring your family down. We'll have 2 food trucks, Sauced and Melissa's Fry Bread. Food will be free. We'll have booths and activities there, and it's just basically to raise awareness about 988 and the number that letting people know that they can call, text, or chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
All right. Now, Si, the number of suicides in the state has fallen over the last couple of years. Do you feel like we're making progress?
I want to hope so. I really do. I want people to know that they're not alone, and that maybe there is hope, and that if somebody else is getting help, then that maybe another person can too.
Amber, do you feel like we're making progress? Are we getting anywhere in this fight?
I really hope so. I mean, again, like I said earlier, I think that we're hopefully moving in a direction where we're able to talk about our feelings and talk about them openly, and reducing the stigma that's around all of this. So yeah, I really hope that people know and understand that they're worthy and important, and that things can be better, just like everyone else has said.
If they need to get a hold of you, West River Mental Health, what do they do?
Call us, 343-7262 in Rapid. Come to our office over kind of by the hospital, any of those kinds of things.
All right. Martina, how about you? What do they get a hold of you other than 988?
So we actually just spread awareness about 988. The call center's in Sioux Falls. But if you need to get a hold of me or want to do anything with suicide prevention, you can call at 605-721-1922. That is our central office number.
All right. How about Wellfully?
I'm looking for it. I don't call my
I knew I'd stump you eventually on this.
I know, it's a 718 number. I know that much. So sorry about that. It was
That's
not
all right.
ready. Yep.
Well, we're out of time. We're going to have to catch
okay.
that another time.
Come down to the
Amber,
crisis center.
Martina, Si, thank you. Thank you for joining us. See you again next month for the next edition of Focus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.